Here we are, in the modern era, in the 21st century, and it's a bit of an understatement to say that humanity has rapidly developed over the last couple of centuries. From technological advances such as planes, phones, the internet itself, AI, the list is endless. And while these advances have been evident and widely accepted, others not so much. Primarily the societal and surprisingly medicinal advances. Despite how well they've improved society for everyone, and the data, the information is even readily available and taught in schools, many disagree about its effects. This is why I'm saying that society is regressive, because despite all the evidence, all the recent studies and data collected, which are readily available to the public, many still find reasons to call it bogus. And there are often people who don't have qualifications in the field they're even countering. And what do I even mean when I say societal regression? Well, society is defined as an aggregate of people living together in a more or less ordered community, while regression is defined as a return to a former or less developed state. Therefore, in this video, societal regression would be the act of a more or less ordered community whose values and beliefs have returned to a less developed state. In 2013, news was covering that preventable diseases such as measles and chickenpox were about to go away completely. It was a joyous time for the medicinal world that they can finally get rid of such preventable diseases. And then people slowly started to doubt vaccines, refusing to vaccinate their children. And as a result, chickenpox and measles resurged in the community, running rampant once again. Chickenpox is a viral virus which caused symptoms such as fevers, fatigues, and headaches. It would often cause blisters full of fluid which would then create scabs and fall off. In the worst case scenario, it could even lead to death. When the vaccine was publicly made available in 1996, death rates dropped dramatically, from the near 25,000 deaths that occurred at its peak to less than 20,000 by 2013. The same trend occurring with measles when the vaccine was introduced back in the 1960s. Before the vaccine, the death rate for measles was 2.6 million per year, and in 2013 that dropped to just 50. It was even declared as eradicated by the 2000s. Both preventable diseases were near eradicated, gone for good. You no longer needed to be constantly vaccinated just to prevent it. Then a spike of cases occurred in the next following years, coincidentally occurring around the time when vaccine hesitancy or anti-vax started to occur once again. And this set a horrible precedent for something we all experienced during 2019, COVID. It hit, and it hit us hard, in the first year killing 3 million people worldwide. As the situation worsened, accumulated deaths reached near 7 million. But how was anti-vax related to this? Well, the controversy around the newly developed vaccines was rampant, and while some were understandable, such as the worry of the vaccine not being tested enough, the long-term side effects of the vaccine, there were other reasons which were questionable, to say the least. The conspiracy of the fact it'll change people's DNA. It's a government conspiracy. They created this virus just to sell us vaccines. That it includes microchips. Rumors about how those who are vaccinated basically became inhuman even went around, despite scientists and doctors showing statistics about how positive of an effect the vaccines have had. Rather than a trend of increasing deaths per month, they were actually decreasing. And despite all this, all the evidence, all the people who are clearly still who they were before they had the vaccine, not inhuman as the rumors would say, many were still hesitant. And so those unvaccinated, unsurprisingly, had a higher death rate to COVID than those vaccinated. And even that didn't deter them. So fixated on this conspiracy that they could no longer see fact. The state of women's rights in the US has started to heavily deteriorate around the time the Supreme Court of the USA was contemplating an overturning of the Roe v. Wade case on June 24, 2022. This was a case in 1973, which led the Supreme Court ruling in favor of making abortion a constitutional right. The overturning of this case essentially allowed each individual state to decide how they wished to handle abortion, meaning abortion was no longer a constitutional right, no longer a human right. Instead depended on the state, which oftentimes were decisions clearly not made by women or by those who don't even understand women. I mean, after this case passed, it was estimated that about 24 states were going to make abortion illegal, and if we are to accept the New York Times as a trustable news source, then as of the 23rd of March, 13 states have banned abortion, with Georgia just being a tinsy bit special by banning abortions after a woman is already 6 weeks pregnant when her heartbeat can be heard, inherently making abortion a criminal act. And yet, in law, a criminal act is defined as an act of antisocial and dangerous behavior which endangers the public. This has gone so far to the point where government officials are even trying to make abortions akin to first-degree murder, as in intentional killing of a living being, the worst kind of manslaughter, of murder. Exactly how is someone deciding they're not ready for parenthood such a bad thing? It's even worse when you know the reasons why women get abortions in the first place. It's not because they just feel like it, unlike what some politicians may say. And while it's unsurprising that not many would disclose their reasons for getting one, those who did show perfectly understandable and reasonable reasons for their abortions. Either because they didn't choose to have it by being victims of rape, for their own health and safety, as giving birth could risk their own life, or the fetus displayed abnormality and wouldn't make it through the birthing process. Women don't get abortions for no reason. They get them because they have no choice but to, because they could kill her, her child, or both. Is this really such a criminal act? Is this really a dangerous act which endangers the public? Is this really akin to first-degree murder? This is by far the most questionable moral decision we as a society has made. Is it not clear that despite the technological advances in multiple fields, people have slowly begun to revert back to times when such discoveries didn't even exist? From doubting the effects vaccines have despite the evidence, to ridding people of their basic human rights. Is this really the state we wish our society to have? Is this really what we want our future to be?